Hello everybody, and welcome back to Brilliant Shadows, and apparently Swan has just asked where we're heading, and we're going to find out who that is. Ash turned sharply to meet the gaze of a tiny blonde girl who beamed at her.
Goddess be praised, you're alive! When Brood told me what happened...
The two embraced.
You looked in a rush. Where are you going?
The gardens. I need to be ready for tonight.
Oh, goddess be praised. Don't tell me there are more of those creatures we found.
Yes, I'm sure there are. I have no idea why they're here or what they are planning, but I have to stop it.
What do you need from the garden?
Dead roses.
Huh. For once, something magical I can help with.
Huh?
I actually just changed out the flowers in the courtroom. Plenty of dead roses there.
Perfect. Thank you, Swan. Could I convince you to have them brought to my room?
Of course.
In that case, I need to go prepare some things for the spell. Thank you again.
Anything a lowly servant like me can do to help. But will this be enough to protect us from an attack?
I don't know. But if nothing else, we'll be ready to fight.
Oof. Swan nodded and smiled warmly at her.
Goddess, it is good to see you safe.
You too, Swan.
They hugged once more before parting. Returning to her room, Ash felt resolve flare inside her chest. The fear was gone. She knew what had to be done. She wouldn't cower in fear anymore. They would face her on familiar ground. She had allies. She had friends. She had magic. Ooh, I guess we're gonna... Oh, 3 days later. 3 days later.
Prude, could you pass me the cheese?
Sure.
Do you mind if I finish off these pastries?
Go ahead. I've had my fill of sweets.
Mind if we split it?
Swan nodded and cut the last jam tart in half, handing one half to Belinda. Ash let out a long sigh as she looked around her room, dozens of vases filled to bursting with black-petaled roses.
Oh, don't let it get you down, Ash. It looks properly like the room of a necromancer now.
And if we are attacked, I'll have no want of armaments.
And it gave you lots of practice with your spell, right?
All were reasonable points, but somehow the distinct lack of an opportunity to show her iron resolve had doused Ash's burning temper. No, there was no somehow about it. This was utterly humiliating. Why hadn't they attacked? There had to be some sort of explanation for the cult's behavior, not to mention they had turned up absolutely nothing on this third party. The last 3 nights had been so uneventful, the king had advised they take a day off to relax. And so here they were, relaxing after 3 days of quiet. Alfnod smeared butter on a slice of toast and laughed at a joke Ashley had made. Ash had missed it, lost in her thoughts. Wait, who's Ashley? Wait, which one's Ashley? Prude and Hector were as entangled as they had been before their fight. Time heals all wounds, and apparently when a pair has 2 pools of light to pull from, wounds heal quickly. Hector hadn't shared his secret with the rest of the group, but they had sensed the tension even as it had dissolved. This was their first morning eating as a group again, their number having grown with the addition of Swan.
So, what do you mighty mages have planned for today?
I'm supposed to appear in court with Prudence. We are the acting court mages today.
Me and Elfnot have been doing that the last few days. It's painfully boring.
I've had worse duties.
Well, I didn't mean it was actually that bad, but after the events and training we've had over the last few months, it seems...
Mundane.
Yes, exactly.
I'm glad I'm not the only one in shock over how calm it's been.
I could always start training you again, Belinda. You've got plenty of room to learn.
We'll think about it.
I prefer the quiet.
I have to disagree. I would rather have this whole thing over and done with. It is quiet, but it is the quiet before the storm.
Ash nodded, she agreed, and the group seemed to chew in thought for a moment.
We need to find a gray mage. It's the only way to find out what's going on.
How exactly do you propose we do that?
Simple. we get the Rod of Finding.
And how exactly are we planning to have the heads agree to that?
A moment of silence fell.
Actually, I have an idea. We have your mother request their presence for assistance with a delicate matter. We have her tell them that she believes she has found a gray mage, but wants to verify without having to cut them open. They come, and when they use the staff, we get them to identify any other gray mages in the city.
We won't be able to convince them to search the city unless we can prove a gray mage is present. In the state of
Wait a
decay
minute,
the
why
gray
didn't it
mage we
work?
found...
Wait a minute. They had the Rod of Finding and they were with Hector, so either they know about Hector, or there's something I'm missing here.
Don't worry, we'll have a gray mage.
Prude looked confused for a moment, and then she shook her head, eyes as wide as they were able to open.
Ash, no.
It's the best solution.
What exactly is the best solution?
I too am behind a bit on this conversation.
Ash, they won't just let him go. If they find out what he is, then at the very least, they'll take him captive.
No, she's right. It's the best plan
Have they
we have
not
so far.
Used it on him before?
I suppose now is as good a time as any.
Straightening his back and with an almost mocking formality, Hector explained.
I am a gray mage.
The silence was deafening.
What? Like the fellow that was pinned to the wall?
Yes.
Not at all. She was swollen to bursting and looked held together by needle and thread. You look... You look
Swan gestured vaguely.
healthy.
Well, thank you, I think.
So, I'm guessing that he has some sort of tragic backstory behind his grayness. Lest you two would be all in a bit more of a panic.
Oh, like maybe he and his old lover were dying, and she gave him her heart so he could go on living.
I think he's a tad too young for that. Plus, how desperate he was to get paired. You don't act like that if you have love lingering in you.
Maybe one of his parents? No, he wouldn't have been an orphan. I remember when he first arrived. Oh, both parents!
Both parents? Why both?
Because he was born without magic, duh!
How in the world did you deduce all that? Hector's face betrayed shock as Belinda turned to him. Alfnod looked rather stricken as well.
Yes, it was. Both of my parents, actually.
Oh, was I right?
In a sense. They gave up their lives to make a weapon.
Hector stared passively forward, displaying no emotion. His silence spoke well enough that the comment had disquieted him.
It's decided then. Prude, have your mother send the letter. I am sure they'll arrive within the month, even if it's only for courtesy after having thrown us out.
Will it be?
Once we have the location of a gray mage, Elfnod, Belinda, and I will track it down and spy out some information. Prude will stay with Hector. If it comes to it, we'll aid in your escape, Hector.
No one said a word. Everyone simply nodded. They followed her commands as naturally as soldiers their general. The passion, the burning resolve returned to Ash's chest.
Soon, we'll have some answers.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess we'll have the next day. All right, well, what happened on the next day? Ash had trouble putting it into words. There really wasn't much to say.
This is brutal.
You can say that again.
This is brutal.
She already said that.
But you said...
Is it another green mage?
Hector emerged from the entrails.
Yep, definitely a gray mage.
That brings the total of confirmed kills from this assassin to 3.
Given that prior to now there was no greater threat than a gray mage, it's a bit frightening to think that there's another force out there hunting them.
The real question is, are they on our side? Or do they have their own agenda?
Is it your partner?
Maybe it's Ash's pair.
Hey, that's what I said. Are you some kind of magic user that, has some kind of divination? How do you know this stuff? Prude shot Belinda a withering glare.
What? I'm just saying, it could be good. Something stronger than a gray mage on our side.
We keep assuming that this assassin is stronger than a gray mage. Given how little we know of this individual's magic, it may simply be more a matter of rock versus scissors. I am just posing hypotheses. I don't want to accept that there's a force out there that's more dangerous than the power a gray mage can wield.
You just don't want to admit that Ash is stronger than you.
Belinda looked sideways at Ash, smirking.
No, it's not that. I'm just scared to imagine something so powerful. There should be balance.
Hector turned to a pair of guards who had been on standby.
Contact the Medicians. We'll leave it to them to clean up the bodies.
Ash was a bit shocked to see Hector taking to command so easily. She turned to Prude, examining her expression, trying to see if any of the same surprise could be found on her face. Her face was passive. She looked lost in thought. Had Prude expected Hector to take command? Ash couldn't help but wonder if the two had discussed who would assume the mantle of king, assuming they married. It felt wrong to Ash to think that Hector would take the title away from Prude. Trying to suppress the feeling, she gave the corpse one last look, just like the others nailed to the wall like an insect by distorted metal. What kind of power could do something like that? What kind of power indeed. Oh, man. That night, Ash woke up with a start. She felt a violence in her belly, a demanding hunger. Okay, let's go eat then. This wasn't going to wait till morning. With a prolonged groan, Ash flung herself out of bed. One thing people don't often tell you about castles is exactly how cold they get at night. Ash's feet felt like ice as she padded swiftly across the stone. As she neared the kitchen, she was surprised to find it still alight and sound coming from within.
Oh, come on, there must be something left over. I can't believe they completely cleaned it out already.
Was the cook looking for a midnight snack too? Ash peered around the corner, and sure enough, the cook rummaging through the cabinets and drawers looking for something.
Good to see I'm not the only one who gets midnight cravings.
The cook nearly struck the ceiling with his leap of surprise.
Whoa, excuse me. I did not think anyone else was up. I was looking for some leftovers. I am a bit peckish.
Couldn't you just cook something fresh?
But who wants to fire up the oven and get everything out? I was hoping to just find some leftovers.
You could always just make some pasta and cheese, like you used to make for me and Prude in the middle of the night.
Yes, but I don't want to go through that effort for just myself.
The cook seemed to regret his words even as he said them. Ash felt a little guilt in pressuring him when he was not as much in the mood to cook, but he had once told her to wake him at any hour if she were hungry. Surely whatever reluctance possessed him now would not be enough to dissuade him from his promise.
You can cook for the two of us. I can help.
Oh, yes, of course.
The cook looked near to panic.
I'll start boiling the water and find some dried pasta. You should start on the sauce.
Of course.
Ash pulled out a large pot, filled it with water, and set it over the stove. Opening the stove's belly, she found embers still flaring away inside. The cook never let the fire die. She fed it a few logs and spared a glance as she walked towards the storage closet. He seemed intent as he mixed something in a pot. Ash was glad to see him focused. He loved to cook. Whatever had been eating at him was apparently not enough to dissuade his instincts and passion to make food. It didn't take her long to find the dried pasta stores, though she hadn't been in here since she was a child. She gave her best guess at how much would be needed at filling a mixing bowl from a shelf. Ash stepped out, preparing to ask the cook if her portions were correct, when she caught sight of a plume of wicked black smoke curling from a pot on the stove. The cook's face was a mask of panic as he picked up the pot of water and the pasta and made to turn it over onto whatever he had managed to burn. There had been a time when she had worked in here, and it was then that she had learned an important lesson about cooking fires. Ash rushed forward, stopped the advance of the cook, and burying the fire of the foul-smelling monstrosity the cook had produced under a nearby towel. It took a few minutes for the smoke to clear, the two opening nearby windows to the bitter winter cold.
You appear to be having an off night.
You have no idea.
The cook gave her a smile, and Ash felt a shiver run up her spine. She never really felt that familiar with the man, but right now she felt like this was home. It was so odd. She couldn't remember the last time she had felt it. This place certainly hadn't been home since she had returned. But somehow, sitting there beneath what could have been most easily identified as tar than sauce, beside a cook who had probably never burnt a meal in his entire life, Ash felt at home. How exactly did that work?
So, do you like being a necromancer?
I do, but...
Huh?
I mean, as opposed to something else.
Oh, you mean like a paladin?
I mean, like anything. Have you ever wondered what it might have been like to be born
The cook paused to gesture vaguely.
something else?
Ash paused. How is this something she had never thought about? She choked on the words as the two sat in silence.
I don't know. It's hard to imagine. I'm happy with who I am, despite all the difficulties that have come with it. I don't want to change.
Do you resent those who do?
Ash immediately thought to Prude.
No, not ever. People should be whoever they want to be. They should change if they need to, and they should be happy. That's what's important.
Ash turned to the cook. He smiled and wiped his eyes.
Thank you. I needed to hear that.
Why? I would think you were happy with who you were.
I change more than you think. I need to excuse myself.
Without another word, he was gone, still wiping his eyes. Is he a gray mage? Ash left the burnt pot to soak and happily found a jar of pickled plums, and hungry enough to eat about anything, ate a few before returning to bed. Is he a gray mage? Is that what it is? Oh boy. All right, everybody. Well, that's what we're going to call this one. This is interesting. I'm wondering what's going on here. I'm very confused, but I'm enjoying the series, so make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you tomorrow night. Bye-bye, everybody.